a special registration process for migrants who have overstayed or entered the country illegally. The online registration process will begin from Monday 26th of January and end on Wednesday 25th of February 2026. All applicants are first required to register through the official portal at migrantregistration.gov.tt. That's migrantregistration.gov.tt. After completing the online registration, there will be a mandatory in-person processing and verification which begins at the end of February 2026. The start date for that phase will be announced through official government channels. The in-person registration will take place at the Hazley Crawford Stadium, Port of Spain, the Atto Bolden Stadium in Balmain, Couva, and the Larry Gomes Stadium in Malabar, Arima, as well as the Dwight York Stadium, Bacalet, Scarborough, Tobago. Applicants will undergo a comprehensive verification process which will include vetting by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service involving fingerprinting and background checks. You will also be required to undergo basic medical screening. Upon completion of the registration process, successful applicants will be required to pay $700 for the migrant registration card. The ministry reminds undocumented migrants your participation in this exercise is essential, as failure to register during this window will result in deportation. This special registration process for migrants is your opportunity to be documented, protected, and allowed to work legally in Trinidad and Tobago for a defined period. For additional instructions, along with online application and required forms, visit the official portal at migrantregistration.gov.tt. That's migrantregistration.gov.tt. This message brought to you by the Ministry of Homeland Security and the Information Division, Office of the Prime Minister.
WESN.
Well, as we are now in the period of Lent, dare I ask everyone, do you feel safe? Now is the time when things should have calmed down. All the excitement and the hustle and bustle of Carnival is over. To some extent, though not completely, the fetting, the partying, the drinking isn't over, it's reduced. The drunk driving maybe is reduced. Now we have to wonder, are we going to see things return to normal? Because this is the first time we do not have a state of emergency or a period of Carnival or a general election going on. For the last year plus 1 month, we've had something that has caused the society that we live in to be in a period that is beyond the norm. This is the first normal time period we've had in quite some time, now that Carnival is over. Now that the extreme police presence in the areas where we are seeing the largest amount of people congregating during that period, that is now over. At times, police presence is utilized in order to suppress crime. A state of emergency is utilized in order to suppress crime. But notice, if you looked up the definition of the word suppress, it will not necessarily equate to resolve. It will not necessarily mean a solution to put an end to. One of the things that I don't do is I don't look to all of the crime reports, particularly all the murders. It's draining and stressful. And it's one of those things where you have to, as a citizen of this country, be aware of what's going on, not necessarily let it control you, because you don't want to literally be so afraid that you'll never leave your house. You can't go buy groceries. You can't go do nothing, right? But the flip side is, even though in 2025, it's a lot easier to not having to leave your house if you really wanted to. That's not necessarily a healthy way to live. But you still need to be aware of what's going on and to make smart choices on certain things, where you go, who you hang out with, you know, how long you're loitering in whatever given area, what routes you take. It is what it is. But now there's a period where the murder rate itself for the year, according to one newspaper report, I believe is only 55. And it's one of those things where, are we supposed to judge it relative to what I think a lot of people are hoping is the new normal? That is to say, the murder rates of last year, where on average we were seeing things like 30 to mid-20s, maybe even lower. It was so much lower than years gone by, it was almost as though it was no longer newsworthy to track. Now, if the murder total is 55 for the year, that's not necessarily bad, because that's still around the 30 something if you average out. But the flip side is, you have to look at the murders now. Also, there is the fact that, one, well, to put it in perspective, apparently only 19 serious crimes were recorded for Carnival 2026, the lowest apparently in the past 6 years. Last year, there were 62. Now, what does that mean? What constitutes a serious crime? And exactly, was it all, how do you determine that it was with regards to Carnival 2026, or maybe something that wasn't associated with Carnival? Because when you read some of the reporting that came out of the success that this might be the safest in 20 years, it's not as though crime was down during Carnival. It seemed more like maybe they kind of determined certain crimes didn't have anything to do with Carnival, certain murders and the like. So because of that, even though it was around the same time, we might not count it. Is it that kind of accounting tricks that we're looking at here? Because last year there were 62 serious crimes, and yet, dare I say, people felt safer last year. Now, do you feel safer? Because apparently the citizens of East Port of Spain don't necessarily feel any safer. And the police commissioner is having to speak to that, saying the police is prepared to tackle any resurgence in gang violence in and around East Port of Spain. So, and there have been several, when you look at the various newspapers, I am both gladdened and extremely sad to say I've gotten accustomed to not seeing so much crime reports in the news in such concentrated clusters. Glad in the sense of there was a period where things seemed that they were better. That could just be a quirk of what editorially it was decided to report on. But let's just go with, hey, things might have been better. We were enjoying at least news that weren't so negative on the crime reporting front. And to some extent now, any thought of going back to what it was before is what saddens me. Let me say this up front. I am not someone that cares about who wins or loses politically. So I am not hoping for this whole thing to fail so that I could prove a point, so that I could be right, so that the party that's the government today could fail, and then we could get rid of them for the other party, which I spoke out against when they were in power. So what would be the point of me having some sort of agenda? There's no pleasure behind this. When things goes wrong in the country, that means people are hurting. And when it's murders, that's beyond just hurting. That's a very final thing. One of the things that I did not look into, only had one show last week with everything that happened. It wasn't necessarily planned to be that way, it just worked out that way. So I didn't have time to go into one murder in particular in Couva. Let me just make sure that I'm not mixing them up. Where the parents were killed in front of the child. And what I have not read all the stories, so I don't know why after killing the father, and apparently the couple, the parents were not together, at least according to some of the reports that I've read. They ran after the mother and killed her too. Why? Was she involved in criminal enterprise? Did she know too much? Was this a personal killing? What was the guy involved in? Maybe he wasn't involved in anything. Maybe it was just they didn't like his head. I don't know. And there's a very brutal photograph in one of the daily newspapers from last week. And this was in a play park. So right now, the residents of Cuba, they don't feel safe. They're looking to have a peace concert. That's nice. I would challenge them. Maybe this is one of those things where you should have a protest, a peaceful protest, an organized protest, a protest with permission, but a protest nevertheless. Not some political dog and pony show. Right now, I'm not entirely sure if you could trust the opposition or any other political operator from being a part of any sort of protest without turning it into some sort of circus. Now, that might be unfair to the current opposition leader, but that is the baggage that the PNM has to carry. So suck it up and do better so that that's not how you're going to be perceived. More on that maybe in a little bit on why I want to make that point. But at a time when the murder rate is low, do we feel safe? Because I spoke to East Port of Spain, Cuba, like at some point, does it really matter? Do we think that somehow murders will magically be limited to very specific geographic locations and it will never bleed out into anywhere else? Meanwhile, there's a report with regards to the Samaru killing on how threats were made against that family, allegedly by someone in national security. That is the accusation based on text messages. One of the text messages apparently reads, anyone who looks at me funny, I'm paraphrasing, will get locked up, on top of other things. Almost as though the old adage that, listen, there are some people in the country that will say one of the biggest gangs in this country is the TTPS. Now, I'm not necessarily willing to say that as an institution it's a gang. However, in one of the killings that happened recently, 2 young men, one age 29, one age 18, they were gunned down on Saturday night. The neighborhood, the community, yes, I know, the parents will always say, the mother, the auntie, the granny will always say, oh, they're good boys, they never nothing. And then you'll see social media pictures of them being involved in things, having, you know, metallic items that they're not supposed to be having if they were really good boys. But let's go with it. The community is saying they don't be in anything. Cool. But they're also saying that the police should look into their own ranks. This is an anonymous resident. Quote, it have rival drug blocks operating up here. A policeman running one. And like he not making like he used to. So he cleaning house. Because there were 4 victims of this shooting. The ones who died, it's implied they were not involved in anything. The question is the other 2 who are wounded but survived, were they the intended targets? Or could this be a case like a certain Maruga triple killing, where the intended target wasn't even found and all 4 victims were just unintended casualties, innocent bystanders. Wrong place, wrong time, mistaken identity. But it's interesting. It's interesting that there's a member of the public that is pointing to his belief, and he's willing to say it publicly, and apparently he told it to the police. One of the gang leaders is one of you. And now that that's been thrown out there, what are the rest of us supposed to make of it? Yes, obviously, if certain officers who have a certain track record, a proven track record in their work, how they conduct themselves to the public, and that could be a smokescreen, but for the most part, if they said, it's not us, we're not doing that, yeah, we'll believe them. But as an institution, who believes in the service to that extent that they're going to give them the benefit of the doubt over any sort of accusations like this? Because as I said, before this is the first time someone has said something like this. Now, let's go to the Mickey Mouse show. Apparently, there were only 180 body cameras operational during Carnival. One of the things that has come out is that the Minister of Homeland Security, he wants a report on a multi-million-dollar contract issued under Guy Griffith for body cameras and supporting infrastructure. Oh, now all of a sudden, we're including supporting infrastructure. Because let's not forget, the current commissioner asked their own contract because he was concerned on the price per unit of the camera. Didn't speak about supporting infrastructure there. Very conveniently, there was no talk about supporting infrastructure there. But now they're supporting infrastructure. Why? Because the contract that they're talking about, apparently, the body cameras were purchased for $3.4 million. Then there was a licensing and maintenance allocation, I guess, for the period of 2021 to 2025 at $22 million. Right? They want to include that in the average cost of unit at $34,000 per unit. I don't know if that's necessarily a fair thing to state, but no one ever accused the Commissioner of Police of being a qualified accountant. Then they want to say if you include it with a GPS contract that already existed in the TTPS. And this is the key point where if you're going to say things like this, you need to be as accurate as possible. Do not think that people aren't going to ask pertinent questions. Because they said, we're talking about the Guy Griffith contract. Guy Griffith contract. They didn't necessarily say that the GPS contract that already existed in the TTPS was determined or put into place by Guy Griffith. That's not the words that they said. The body camera contract was interwoven with a GPS contract that already existed in TPS. And between last year and this year, I've been called upon to pay $100 million for that contract. Is that value for money? Again, because you want to throw Guy Griffith under the bus. Because you can't take the heat for your own failings. You don't want to take responsibility for your Mickey Mouse show, where you want to play soldier with your Punisher patch. I don't wear a Punisher patch because I never kicked down a door. I never assaulted a room. I never cleared a room and took on armed assailants. Mr. Commissioner, have you? As far as I'm aware, you haven't. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you are a door kicker. But what sounds better? Guy Griffith had $25.4 million contract, is that value for money? Or $100 million, is that value for money? Except you're not necessarily being clear with regards to how the rest of that $74.6 million price tag, what was that for? Who approved that? What's the time frame of that, etc., etc. More importantly, let's now throw all that. You can't even necessarily craft a proper narrative accurately in order to not leave any doubt, to poke holes, whether those holes will eventually be proven to be important, pertinent holes or red herring holes. You're leaving it too ambiguous for me. But let's go beyond that now. What does that have to do with the fact that there are no body cameras? There was a police shooting that potentially has an explanation as to why Mr. Samuel ran from the police. Because he was of the opinion that agents of the state, potentially at the behest of one individual allegedly who just wants to see him dead, will engage in some sort of extrajudicial unlawful way to kill him. Therefore, he ran from the police. Oh, wait. How his death occurred, to some extent, implies that that might be true. And you don't have body cameras or anything else in order to prove that. Let's not forget, Minister of Homeland Security, I'm going with the evidence. Your Mickey Mouse Club can't provide me nothing. Why am I supposed to believe you? Your logic does not generate any sort of confidence. Your words don't generate any sort of confidence. Your deeds don't generate any sort of confidence. You have axed your own body camera procurement exercise. Why? Or at the very least, it wasn't done by Gary. With barely any sort of justification that makes it, to me, seem more like you are financially inept, because that's not your role. Ironically, perhaps Ayla might be the better commissioner. Ain't that something? First of all, she was more decisive with dealing with at least one incident of potential police misconduct. But maybe that's why she was unpopular with some of you. I don't know. One squad, one song. And now we have a Minister of Homeland Security that is not offering us proper and true civilian oversight of a paramilitary organization by which we have already technically gotten, as part of the public record, statements that imply that they are taught how to get the story right for the public. We have a police shooting incident where there is no version of events that has been presented thus far that could even begin to pretend to explain how the shooting was justified. We have a hapless, whatless minister and commissioner that is trying to defend the undefensible for the sake of trying to appear to be fair, sinking their reputations, those who are not diehard UNC supporters at the very least, sinking their reputations. And for all of you UNC supporters, please understand, sinking the reputation of the government, whether or not the Prime Minister and the rest of Cabinet agrees with them or not, harming the reputation of the government and the government's fight on crime. harming the service. Sorry, they're harming the police service. They're harming the TTPS. They're defending the service. What do I mean when I say the service? I mean that subsection of national security that's in it for themselves, for their own career advancement, and for whatever other extrajudicial monetary rewards that they get. That's what I mean by the service. I mean everything that's wrong with law enforcement in this country. And we can't say that there's nothing wrong. We can't. I'm talking about the group of officers that put the entire police force in the mud, that brings all the other officers' reputation into ill repute. Those officers dare not speak out against nothing. Because if you go against the service, fish that swim against the current drown. Officers do end up dead. It's very interesting which officer involved shooting gets a lot of attention and which does not. Clerks in the judiciary end up dead. Prosecutors in this country end up dead. Men with their hands up end up dead. So what is the Minister of Homeland Security going to do about the body camera situation? Blame Gary Griffith and do nothing of any importance to actually deal with the actual problem. The actual problem is not, oh, we need to solve this financial mismanagement. No, that's a secondary problem. The actual problem is not having body cameras and a policy that mandates body cameras to be worn by police officers in order to ensure that there is available evidence. Because, hey, if the police are innocent, if all of you are innocent, why is it that you do not want a tool to ensure that you're innocent? Why? Why is it that the minister seems to be very much afraid of body cameras being deployed out in the service? As though he's afraid he'll get caught doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing. As if he forgot he's no longer a police officer. This is one of the reasons why perhaps when you have Secretary of Defense, Minister of Defense, etc., you don't want a former member of the protective services being in that job because they identify too closely with their former job. And they cannot be the effective civilian oversight of that position. Also, no offense, but I think it's starting to become clearer and clearer. However bad Ayla and Fitzgerald Hines were, Roger Alexander as Minister of Homeland Security is probably even less than qualified than they were. The current commissioner, I don't know, he's so far started off swell and is becoming more and more disappointing as time goes on. That's not my opinion alone. Let's not forget the UNC lost to the Keith Rowley PNM twice. You think Philip Alexander's words is reality? That it's impossible for the PNM to win the next election? That is my nightmare scenario, by the way. Because the last thing I want to see is people winning elections by default, just on the basis that we're not them. So vote us in. Because no one will strive to be better. They'll just buy the time. And a lot of people want to complain, yes, but the PNM have been in charge for longer. Why? Why did that happen? What demographic advantage does the PNM have over the UNC when it comes to elections? Now the question is, will that somehow continue? Because if it is, someone needs to tell Philip that. Philip thinks that, oh, no. There's a new majority race in this country. So now we don't have to worry about job performance. We just have to worry about demographics. We don't actually have to worry about dealing with crime. Just as long as the right demographic feels victimized, and we in turn suppress the hell out of the other demographic, and we look to our support voter base that we're tough on crime, everything will work out for us at the polls. And to that I say, good luck with that. Because I'm fairly certain the amount of true undecided voters in this country, remember only 54% of the population voted in the last election. Sorry, not of the population, of the voting base. 54% of the voting population voted in the last election. You can't tell me that the 40% of your demographic showed up only to vote for you. There's a big chunk of both majority races that said, not today. And there's some truth in the whole, I rather vote for the opposition than vote for the incumbent that's looking like a mess. Of course, there'll always be the question of, if it wasn't for COVID, would Keith Rowley have 2 terms successive? Or would he have been limited to 1 term? We don't know. We don't know. But it's fine. Keep going how you're going. Stand your ground laws. Let's not forget, Minister of Defense said, if they're probably fake police, or maybe the police are part of a gang and they want to shoot you, so shoot them back. This is the recommendation of the government. That's their solution to crime. Not accountability, transparency, meritocracy, effective policing, job performance, etc., etc. None of that. Not getting the resources to the officers that need it. No, none of that. Not proper oversight in order to ensure that the bad apples don't become a runaway train, undermining the entire police service. None of that. No. We're too lazy for that. A lot of people say I shout too much, I carry on too much, I get on too much. I don't want to show the photo necessarily on TV, but I will challenge anybody. The article is in the Express. It's titled Blood in the Play Park. One of the photos is, I believe, the assailant holding the gun over the female victim at point blank range, with the child running off. The implication is this is either the moment of her death or right after. I don't care what race she was. I don't care if the child's father was a bad man. I don't care what she may have been involved in or wasn't involved in. This was at a play park. There were other children there. I don't feel safe for things like this. I can't fault the rank and file of the TDPS for things like this. I can't fault the people in charge who aren't doing their job and who are spending way too much time playing politics, to borrow a phrase from Michael Douglas. All they could do is tell you who to blame for it because they don't know, to paraphrase, how to fix it. Let's take a break. When we come back, we will welcome the media ambassador. Stay tuned.
It all comes down to this. From the prelims up to the quarterfinals, 8 judges have sat in these chairs and 10 contestants have stood on the other side of this mic. Tonight, we're up to the semi-final round and down to our 6 top scoring stars and a new 3-piece panel of judges. Tonight, you'll see and be the judge of performances by the 6 contestants who have made it to the semis. That's right, you get to vote. So log on and get in on the act at coverstar.live. This is Coverstar, where music history meets its next voice.
Don't stop.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
Hi, I am Emiliana Beechan and I am a mental health and conflict resolution consultant. Welcome to Mind Matters, the show where we explore the intricate world of mental health and the art of conflict resolution. Join us as we hear from mental health professionals, conflict resolution experts, and everyday people who have transformed their lives through understanding and communication. Mind Matters, coming soon to WESN Content Capital.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The fluid retention occurs in the lungs and they get short of breath, particularly with exertion, and is a particularly condition where when lying down they feel short of breath and have to use a lot of pillows. That's a sign that the shortness of breath might be due to heart failure.
The home of Caribbean content is growing and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Nah, you don't need to register nothing. You don't need, we can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe we defend criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploited the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
FanZone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
And we're back here on talking about the WSND Contact Capital show, Michael. So, yes, I know that I just went on a whole spiel against murders and accountability of law enforcement in this country. That's why I mentioned the rank and file can't change this. Right? I did say that because I'm being joined by the media ambassador, Acting SP Christopher Rood. Chris, one thing I did say was that there will be officers who we trust, who we will believe when they say, we're not involved in that nonsense. The problem is the institution, by which the commissioner is the main spokesperson for, does not have that same level of grace. But I'm not going to pull you into that conversation because that's not your job. You're not supposed to be speaking on behalf of your boss, boss's boss.
Unless I have permission.
Unless you have permission, which I doubt that they gave you permission after the previous executive fired the current minister because he apparently said things that he didn't have permission for. I appreciated the whistleblowing at the time, but at the same time, let's just kind of remember that, right? That said, you're here to have a more specific conversation. And I do believe, I remember last week reading something to this effect with regards to the police were concerned over Carnival with young people and minors abusing substances.
Correct, Well, good day to you, Sean. Good day to your viewers and your colleagues. Thanks for having me. I mean, the carnival season has come to an end, thankfully. It was a very, I wouldn't say difficult, but it was strenuous on the TTPS to have conducted the duties and to have the place safe for carnival. Thankfully, we had great cooperation from members of the public. Thankfully, we had that. But the majority of members of the public abided by the laws and by the instructions of the police officers on the ground. And we had a wonderful carnival period. They did an excellent job, I must say. I spoke to my colleagues that also went out. I was out there. As usual, we had, the rise in certain crimes like offenses like domestic violence and whatnot. Maybe fights and whatnot, but nonetheless, that comes with the period and the festivities as well. And we were able to quell most of it. The commissioner didn't indicate that there was only a few serious crimes, but he also indicated, I believe via the express code indicated before, that there was reports of youths involved in substance abuse.
Yes.
So we had cases like that, and we wanted to implore parents, listen, it's also your responsibility to ensure that and it's a very difficult job. It's not a very easy job to be a parent now when you have teenagers and youths that may hide and with peer pressure and whatnot, other involvements with other youths in the community, whether it's school or not, and the indulgence of substances. So we had that. We had cases where we had youths using substances and getting out of hand, and we had cause to arrest them, of course, and take them to a safe place and deal with them accordingly to the extent of the law, where they went before the children's court and whatnot. But nonetheless, we also had instances where youths, we had cases where youths would have tripped off, having used the substances, and we had to bring in the emergency services to help them and whatnot. So we had cases like that. And, we don't want to see those cases exploded. We don't want to see it getting out of hand. We want it to be controlled. We want to get the help these young people need to overcome the substance abuse and whatnot.
I remember a long time ago, some young people were like drinking rum punch on a dare.
Right.
And they drank so much that they got sick. And it's just one of those things where I think, I don't know if it's just not enough parental supervision,
right,
or the assumption, oh, young people are so much more sophisticated. It's like, listen, it's not like they know better when it comes to ingesting substances. Right. And it's one thing to do enough to be high. It's another thing to do it in unsafe circumstances where now they're in the public, or to the point where you have to be hospitalized.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, right? They don't know what the limits are. They don't know what their limits are. And then there's always the risk of random contamination. It might be spiked with something stronger. Right. Or even rarer, but still potentially pertinent, like their body just responds worse to some substance that they take than their peers.
Yeah, and we had a case where a young person was sexually assaulted. Yeah. And substance was one of that led to that. So,
and this wasn't an adult slipping something to an adult. This was kids, I assume, fooling around, or was it intentional that someone was spiked with something?
Sorry, I can't say.
You can't say. But regardless, it's still kids.
Yeah. Well, sorry, this was a young person.
Oh, this was a young adult?
Yeah, young adult.
Okay. I mean, not that it makes it better, but...
Yeah, but as much as possible, parents have the responsibility for the children, especially minors. I mean, if you turn 18, they're entitled to go there of their own free will. They're adults now. They go with their friends, and they want to go and party, they want to go and lime, and they get involved with other people and these substances, and they experiment, of course. It's really the experimentation that leads to these issues and the difficult scenarios they get themselves into. But before that, when with the minors, these are the persons that fall under your responsibility, and as much as possible, keep them away from these activities that would lead to these things. And there are cases where it may happen in schools, so it's beyond your control at that time. But as much as possible as parents, supervise, employ your kids, teach them to stay away from drugs.
I mean, one of the things is, I guess, the whole world is different. Like, I grew up before the internet, but I can't remember what it felt like before the internet. I don't know if that makes sense, right? Like, it's so far away.
Yeah, it's saturated now with the internet.
Right, and one of the things is, ironically, it's not as though I didn't grow up with my nephews, but we have some of the same tendencies.
Right.
Where it's like, you might have this screen on, and then you're checking on another screen, and then you have a background screen.
Yeah, so it's becoming norm. Yeah.
And the thing is, it's one thing for me to do it, right? But I don't know what it means for a child to do it.
Right.
To have that level up, because I've seen adults do a deep dive into the internet and go down rabbit holes that has seemingly changed their personalities for the worse. Yeah. What does that mean for the development of a child? For some children, it's fine because they just naturally have a certain level of judgment and maturity that they don't fall for the traps.
Right.
But for others, I don't know. And then now you add to that both as a form of communication.
Yeah.
Right? But also you're just exposed to things.
Yeah.
So you feel like you know a lot. And of course, I think one of the things that we all have to admit when we get older, we knew very little when we were that age, right?
Yeah.
But now you feel that it's fine to try things. Yeah. It's almost like you're entitled to do things that you shouldn't be doing. Yeah. And you end up getting yourself in trouble.
Right. And with minors on the internet, you have to be a lot more responsible in how you supervise them. Because when I was in the child protection unit, one of the cases that we used to get, well, it probably still happens from Interpol, of cases where sexual communication was a thing. And persons from different countries, first world countries, because I've done investigations at the child protection unit where persons from first world countries target children in Trinidad and Tobago online. And they pretend to be their friend, they pretend to be the same age and whatnot, and they get them to transmit photos and have sexual conversations with them. So as much as possible, and the thing is, when we looked into some of these devices, because we would take a device as a victim, a survivor, or a perpetrator, we would seize your device with a warrant, and we would go into the phone and we would see apps, and these apps could be hidden. So these conversations could be hidden from the parents. Yeah. So in most cases, if not all, the parents hardly knew anything about these conversations, and they sometimes bounced up on it and whatnot.
Because it's one of those things where I don't think you could fully remove the internet from kids.
No.
Like, think about growing up, the kid that was not allowed to do the things that other kids were doing.
Yeah.
Just think about how that would mark him as different, and how difficult that would just make his social life with his classmates.
Right. And as
a basic thing.
And as much as we want to ban social media or control social media, I remember this one case where this, I think he was 20 years old. He would have befriended a child in Trinidad, talking about two Trinidadians. Two Trinidadians. So he's about 20 years old. And the child is about 8 or 12, I can't remember she age. And they met on Roblox. There's an app called Roblox. So they met and had conversations on Roblox. This is a gaming, it's a gaming app, right? And they met via Roblox, and he was able to convince her to meet him, and they had sex.
How old was the girl?
She was either 8 or 12, I can't recall.
Right, yes, okay, yes. Yeah. God, I think you just said that. And
yeah, and she willingly, and the thing is, although she couldn't give consent legally, she willingly went and had sex with the adult. Yeah. So as much as possible, even these gaming apps, I really supervise that as well. I actually go on the game and go into the game and look at who my child is communicating with.
I think one of the things with those is that usually you can't set it so that it just can't be a free-for-all.
Right, yeah.
Certain games, you have to be willing to accept friend requests for communication and the like.
Yeah.
And the degree of protection varies.
Right.
But
in terms of the substance abuse, we've seen a lot of cases of substance abuse where children are being, for the want of a better word, pressured into using.
Because I think back in the day, if one child got into this kind of trouble, it might have been isolated.
Right.
But now with the more convenient and readily available communication tools, it's a lot easier to, I mean, on one hand, it's not as, there are less physical meetups, but they still happen.
Right, and they're using social media as well to traffic the narcotics and the
to plan, to communicate, to encourage.
To meet and whatnot, so that they could sell and buy the substances that we're talking about. And then together they experiment. So we have a lot of cases where the children are experimenting with these drugs, and they're tripping off, and they're having a bad reaction to it. And of course, the reaction would be bad because it's narcotics.
I mean, generally speaking, one of the worst kept secrets in this country is underage drinking, right? It is what it is. This is not the hill that I'm looking to die on, because I'm like, hey, a lot of it happens with parental consent. You all need to figure that stuff out yourself, right? Yeah. Then now, on some level, underage weed smoking, that's been going on for as long as I could remember, because I've seen my peers when I was underage do it, right? I don't know how they got it. I don't know where they got it. Right. I was not that well versed in all of that, right?
Yeah.
As an adult, I have seen people who I know, long before it became legal, solicit the services of those individuals. But that's adults. We have cars, they're adults, they have adult experience, they have a, right. But my point is, this is one of those things where, I don't know what it is, but if the previous generation drank alcohol and smoked weed, that's no longer cool, that's the norm. So we need to do something cool. We need to push the envelope, right?
Yeah.
And a part of it I also wonder is, there is a phenomenon with my generation, I think, where the parents before, so the parents of my generation, not that my parents did this, but it's the whole, maybe to some extent most parents do this. Life was so hard, my kids are not going to go through the life that I went through. And they go too much out of the way to make life too easy, right? So all of a sudden you have kids with access to the internet, probably in some cases too much disposable income, right? That they could spend on, choose to spend on whatever.
And a lot of freedom.
And too much freedom, right? And then it's like, I'm not going to question them. It's fine. I trust my kids. I'm their friend. And it's like, no, you're the guardian that's supposed to mentor and protect them from themselves if necessary.
Right, and just to put a warning out there, it is still illegal. Although marijuana is decriminalized to some extent, it is still illegal to expose minors to narcotics.
I mean, this is just one of those things where I'm not even mad with regards to the police with regards to that, because it's an assumption, but I believe it's so widespread. And it's so well hidden.
No, and we have cases where
even before it was legal.
Yeah, there are communities that they smoke the marijuana and whatnot in front of the children and whatnot.
I think it's one of those things where if you get caught, the whole everybody does it is not an excuse.
No.
Right? So you need to understand you allowing your kids to do this is technically not right. Or at least technically not legal. If you want it to be legal, lobby your MP and get the laws changed. Right? If the majority population goes for it, I can't say nothing. ASP Arun can't say anything. But right now, it's the laws on the box. So if you get caught, don't complain.
Yeah, and you're putting yourself in a position where you will be investigated for smoking marijuana or exposing a child to narcotics. You know, the officers would come in, they would take the child, they would hand them over to Children's Authority.
One of the things, because I myself have a friend, he's drank alcohol, he's never done any kind of drugs. Nothing. Right? And I'm sure he knows a lot of people from where he's from that have partaken in drugs.
Right.
And if he wanted to, he could. But I think he is similar to me where I know what it's like to not be in control with just alcohol.
Right.
I don't want to try nothing
There's a line
crazier than that.
Yeah, there's a line.
Right, there's that line. Because you hear these stories of you're always chasing that first high.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where it's like, why do I need to... Listen, it's one thing to try a cigarette. I've tried a cigarette, right? And I've tried weed, right? But it's another thing to say, oh, I need to try white powder, you know, just to see what it's about. No, because the thing is, it's one thing for... We have seen horror stories around the world of adults whose lives have been thrown away because they started making money, and then somebody introduced them to cocaine, and then they got high, and it was apparently to them the best thing ever because they kept spending money chasing that high. And then their addiction got out of control, that their job performance started to suffer. So the income started to cut. So they couldn't afford their drugs anymore. So then they steal from their own family after their family stops giving, right? You know these stories, you've probably seen them all too often in TNT. Family stops giving them loans that are never paid back because they never pay back, so they start stealing, and then eventually they lose the house, they lose the car, they lose the family, they lose everything. Right? And my thing is, if you could have people like high-end professionals, because I'm sure like financial people, doctors, lawyers.
I have done investigations where affluent people were
drugs
using
could ruin their lives, right?
They use cocaine and whatnot.
So why would anyone think that a teenager somehow's brain will be better suited to try this stuff? Just saying, for any parents who maybe turn a little bit of a blind eye for whatever reason. They're not careful enough. Because this is when the brains are developing. I think some people will argue that development doesn't end properly until you reach at minimum your 20s. But then personal development technically is ongoing. There are people in their late 20s like, I'm still developing.
Yeah.
Right?
In terms of maturity and responsibility, yeah. That goes maybe until your 40s.
Because how bad have you seen certain cases of minors getting hooked on this stuff?
The pills, like ecstasy and whatnot, yeah. That to me, that's the worst part of it, where they get involved with the pills and those kind of substances. In terms of cocaine, we don't see much minors getting too involved in that, more adults.
But like, what are the outcomes for some of these kids?
Marijuana, of course, yes.
Because I'm sure you've probably seen some worst case scenarios.
With the pills, yeah.
No, like what happens to them? Is it that you'll catch them in time and then everything's fine, or is their life falling apart? Because I would...
Well, based on their lives are basically, in most cases, falling apart from the interim. And this leads them into that type of lifestyle. So they get encouraged by peers. You're going through a situation, have this. We're going to party, have this. You know, you're not in a family type setting where you're fixed.
I mean, in some cases, the family is not going to be a better influence.
Exactly. So you're in a broken home and that type of thing. And the pills come in, and you want to get freed of the situation. You get yourself involved in that. The police would come in, and hopefully, we hand you over to social workers, to persons who could assist with counseling and therapy, because there are therapies that could help. And we refer you, we take you for medical attention. The doctors would refer you to therapy that assists you to overcome your addiction to the substance.
But it's kind of hard to continue to go to school and pass exams and move on with life.
Right, but
if you're dealing with...
we don't take you out of the school.
I know, but still, like, it's already hard enough for normal students. Could you imagine having, withdrawal symptoms when you're trying to do an exam or some nonsense like that?
Yeah. So there have been cases like that, yeah. And they have to try and maintain, keep up with their social life, their home life and whatnot, and overcome the situation at the same time.
One of the things that, and I'm starting to, it's kind of weird because you could have almost seen like way back in the day, people were more superstitious and gullible, right? Yeah. And somehow we want to believe that we came above all of that as a society, except now we live at a time when, the internet says it must be true. Mm-hmm. And also, I find it interesting, this whole phenomenon of, because it happens with adults, I would imagine as well. You get coerced into it.
Right. In terms of what, the cocaine?
In terms of whatever drug it is.
Yeah.
For the kids, it's more ecstasy. For the adults, it might be cocaine or heroin or whatever.
Yeah, with the adults, it's also experimentation. It's just at that later stage in life. So with the kids, they're going to party amongst their own peers, and they have the experiment with it.
Do we need to have the whole PSA campaign where this is your brain on drugs, and we get some eggs and scramble it, or maybe even get some meatloaf in the shape of a brain and scramble it on a skillet?
There should be a war on all these drugs. Yes.
I do think, actually my friend that never did any drugs, he does attribute to the fact that the campaigns in the States, because he lived in the States for a few years in his childhood. Apparently that kind of just like, once he saw that, he was never even...
He was scared into...
Because my thing is, it's one thing for a kid to have this whole, oh, well, I'm cooler than, my parents. So they smoke weed. That's not cool. That's old people stuff. I pop pills. That's cool. That's young people stuff, right? Oh, I mean, look, they have the latest slang at one point literally was meaningless. Right? The whole 6-7 thing, it's like, what does it mean? It means nothing. It's just people thinking that they're cool because it means nothing. To confuse all of the old people like myself, who for some reason can't understand why something meaningless means something. Right? This is the judgment that we're talking about here. Mm-hmm. Right? So, it's one thing for that. It's another thing for an adult now. It's like, yay, this cocaine thing. We should try it. This might be for me. Like this is a point where I'm like, I don't. Kids will make bad decisions. That's the topic.
Right. But
that we need.
With the adults, we've seen it like it's a developing issue. So you start off with alcohol, then you move on to marijuana, then you move on to cocaine.
I mean, I don't...
So it's a progression. Well, if you
don't
want to use the word progression.
I don't drink that much anymore, and I never drank quite that much as some of the people in my age group growing up. But at what point is getting drunk not enough?
Yeah, it's a sad thing. I've actually seen police officers develop into those categories, and we had to help them to overcome those issues.
How did that happen? How does that happen?
It's a lifestyle. It's more of a lifestyle issue. So they went from casual drinking to drinking, becoming alcoholics, then to develop
alcohol, and then it's not doing enough.
It's a developing, it develops into something else.
And I guess not to necessarily get into the wider topic of the previous legislation, but this also will include social programs.
Right.
And this just goes to the fact that, especially for something like this, when you're talking about minors abusing substances, hard measures by the police is only going to do so much in situations like this.
Yeah, so it's more rehabilitation when it comes to drugs.
Because you're not talking about the hardened criminal that's conducted like 5 murders and 6 armed robberies.
We're talking about children,
right? We're talking about children. And in a lot of cases, this is the first time. Right? Or even if they are repeat offenders, this is not like a violent crime per se, but this is like the first time you catch them. Right?
And you made a good point. But in terms of crime fighting, it does go hand in hand with therapy, with rehabilitation, with, you said something with the zoo, so there was something in the bill.
Yes, social programs.
Right, so it does go hand in hand with social programs. Because like with the Hearts and Minds program, when we, I think it was last week, there was a day last week, I think it was Thursday, where the Hearts and Minds was at this school, I think the Southeast, on Nelson Street, I believe. And while it's there, they had cause to respond to the murder at Mango Rose. Right, the officers. We also responded, and we met them there. And the involvement of these social programs, especially in the schools and the communities, does go a long way in the fight against crime.
Yeah, part of it is you start building up the trust.
Yeah. No, it's very important. Yeah. It's very important.
We'll continue the conversation about your Digicel line. Caller, good morning. You're on here. Caller, you're on here. Good morning.
Good morning, Showman. Welcome back. And ASP, Ashraf.
Arun.
Don't worry, I made that mistake once too. We getting some connectivity problems, caller. Caller, we getting some problems with your connection. Caller, call back. I know it has happened in the past with you. I'm not sure if it's your end, if it's our end. Sometimes I think it's your end. Sometimes it could be our end. But call back, we could try again. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make out anything, so I'm not entirely sure what point he was trying to make. But back with the point with regards to social programs, because one of the interesting conundrums that I don't think this has been talking about, some people I have considered, or rather I would be open to the conversation, not necessarily to commit to this immediately. Decriminalizing certain drugs. But the problem with hard drugs is not like alcohol where you have to like really drink a lot for it to kill you, right? You could die from an overdose rather easily. So that's like one of the main reasons why it's kind of hard to take this from any sort of restriction, right? But I think one of the real issues is, that is besides the point, with regards to minors, there's no way you could leave that open. I mean, if alcohol is not open, you can't put hard drugs open to that. The risks are different. I think for adults, okay, we have Digger Martin back on the line. Caller, good morning.
Good morning. I hope we have it fixed. It's not my connection on this side, so I'm hoping that we have resolved it. Okay, we're talking about minors and are going after the TTPS. And Officer ASP, you are one of the media ambassadors for the TTPS. And I have interfaced with a lot of the ambassadors that goes on all those programs. And they have, a lot of the time, delayed from resolving the Achille Chambers issue. if people understood what went on with that, the coroner said it was a murder, and the officers were complicit in the investigation. This is an opportunity to basically gain some confidence in citizens like myself.
Yeah.
And one of the things I believe is one of the, I suppose, questionable things about the TTPS in respect to gaining the confidence of the population has its credibility. And in order to get back credibility and confidence, I believe the metrics the TTPS use is Boy Scouts metrics. And I will identify two metrics that I want to offer to you all. You can take it or leave it. For example, one of the biggest failures of the TTPS is basically responding. You know those receipts the police give out?
Yeah.
You go, you make a report, and they're supposed to come back. You hear time and time again, please don't come back, they call in. So the police, I believe, should do an analysis of those receipts with respect to resolving the issue. The second issue that I think would help credibility, we're scarce for resources. A lot of policemen are before the courts causing the taxpayers because they are on leave somewhere, being paid, I think, half the salary. That is a cost to we as taxpayers. The old adage, they're not guilty until such time they go to court and the court basically think. I believe there is a tribunal in the police service that could be reactivated, become efficient and functional to minimize that burden on us. The second thing is, as I said, age analysis. I would like the TTPS to come forward with that analysis. Tell us how many policemen have been in suspension and before the courts, and how costly as a taxpayer, and do an age analysis of it. Because if you have one rotten apple and two rotten apples, it will spoil the whole bunch. So those are the things that you have to do to make me confident. And the other thing is I'm going after the media, you including Sean. I see they put a microphone in front of the former Prime Minister, and he was telling them he's feeling the brunt of this failure of the sewage because his goats, his cow, and his chicken and everything. I want to ask him, was that one of the criteria for procuring the carbo staff? And if he might have been better off his take on Farley going together with the Prime Minister to the CARICOM. I mean to say, he has gone, he should be out of our sight. He makes utterances, and the two dailies have him at front page at ICU. I find that is so sad. I'm going to have a nice morning.
Thank you, Paulo. Well, you see, and this is the point that I was going to make if I had the time. I'll probably speak about it tomorrow as well. Before we get into the police stuff. Well, we have another caller, but I'll just say this. I don't know if the Prime Minister speaking about the issue helped the issue. Because now it turns into a political debate between former PNM Prime Minister and current government. TPP, UNC governments, right? THA, central government, right? It will politically cloud the issue because he has baggage that he himself has not necessarily accounted for and resolved to the content of the population, the wider population, in my opinion, which might be unfair because he has put his money where his mouth is when it comes to food production, at least to some degree, although the reliance on imported feed is something that I wish we would find a solution for, but it is what it is, right? But I should at least voice my appreciation of him having that work done, right? But his presence is politically charged, so, and the proof is what the caller just said. Now he is looking at that more than looking at the issue of the cargo boat being down. We have another caller on the line. Caller, good morning, you're on the air.
Hello, good morning. Good morning to everyone there.
Good morning.
Sean, I've been trying to get on the program for a little while, especially with the superintendent, the ESP.
Yes.
Now, I want to talk about an incident that happened in Kunoke, in the police station there. And the problem is, my nephew, he is a gardener, right? And he went to his garden doing his work and whatnot and thing. And this person, somebody breaking the vehicle, right? So they take the phone and the little money he had and thing and whatnot. So my nephew went and he reported to the station. When he gone, they take the report. A little while after, he went and he buy an next phone because they take his phone. He went and he buy an next phone. Well, he get back his number and whatnot and thing. He had a tracking device on his phone. When he watching his phone, he see his phone and whatnot and thing. Somebody using it. So he went to the station and tell her, look, somebody using a phone, look at here. So they went and they locked down the place and thing, and they get the phone. When they hold this person. When they do hold the person now, and they question the person, he's a 15-year-old. He say he ain't nobody, he ain't no parents, not thing. Well, they take back the phone from him. They release he and they say, well, they can't do nothing because he's a minor. Now tell me if this is right, eh? They take the phone, they say, well, the phone, we have to keep this for evidence. They never give him a receipt to say, well, what happened? Or they have no investigation to do, or they have nothing. Up to now, the boy can't get back his phone. The phone is a $5,000 phone. You never give him a receipt to say, well, you know, you have it. Now, the bottom line is, why it is the police will be doing this thing? You say you have nothing to charge the boy for. You don't charge nobody. Why you take the boy phone? You understand? He become a victim under police, and this is the thing that is going on. You have to understand, it's human to human. You can't charge the phone. You can't charge the person who take it. You can't charge a car who park up on the side of the road. You have to charge the person. Right?
Yeah.
But yet you have this phone holding, and the boy even want to go back to it because, and I expected and I keep telling him, I said, boy, go and check. Go and ask them to get back your phone. They want to frustrate the whole thing. I'm sorry to say that, but who is more thief or who is more bandit? Then imagine a boy come there and so somebody come to make a report and you become the victim.
Is it that they didn't give him a reason for seizing
okay,
the phone?
Thanks.
Wait, the reason for seizing the phone caller? What was the reason for keeping the phone?
Is it that
Are you there? No, I think he left. I believe I am under the assumption that he said they kept it for evidence, which is since they didn't charge the...
Right. No, but not because they didn't charge him upon arrest doesn't mean he will not be charged, because with the rules of engagement with minors is that they have to be taken to a booking center. At the booking center, only after his attorney speaks to him, then the police can intervene.
This is with minors?
With minors.
So the parents do not have to be there?
No, the parents must be there as
Parents
well.
must be there.
Yeah,
so
but he indicated that he's an orphan
the
to some extent.
this is the thing. So we're getting a second-hand account. The caller said that apparently the minor said he has no parents, right? And then went on to say that he was released. The implication that is somewhat second-hand is that the police caught a minor with stolen property, did not have parents, so potentially did not, because it's not that the parents weren't available, right? Because then you call them in. So now you have a minor that's basically implied to be an orphan living on the streets.
Right.
We have the caller back that maybe they could clarify. Caller?
Yeah, could you say...
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, what was the reason for them seizing the phone?
Why he didn't get the phone? He didn't get the phone because they say they haven't as evidence.
Right. So is it... Do you
they
know
have
if... Right, so the police
but
would
you
not...
charge nobody.
Right, but they would not release a minor freely of their own will. Is it that they release them to the care and custody of Children's Authority or to a guardian or somebody?
No, they say they can't charge.
No.
They can't charge
when they
him
release
because he's not a minor.
But
He have no parents.
No, I understand that.
Who
but
did they release him to? Because they could not have just released him to go back out, or they should not.
They just released him. They released him just so. They didn't release him to nobody.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Right. Good.
They just released him.
Right. So in terms,
So
let,
I think
let me help you get back.
So
in
I
interview.
think.
Let me find out what's going on here.
So I think.
Phone.
This is Kunupia Station, caller. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, he said Kunupia.
Kunupia.
Could we have your number? Could you leave it with,
Yeah.
with somebody?
Could you leave your number with the station?
Yeah.
So I could look into it and check.
Guys,
No, I can't. I remember. Yes, they have the number. They have the number.
Okay.
Now the thing about it, I can't go on question because it's not on. I didn't lose anything, but he have to go. Remember, they did not even give him a receipt to say, well, all right, he holding this.
Yeah.
This.
What
item.
do you know?
Right?
The model of the phone, the brand?
No,
He would. I wouldn't answer it. Yes,
Right.
yes, he would know. He know his phone.
Yeah, so I need to speak
He
to
know
him
his
to
phone.
get the information.
All right, caller. Thank you.
That we could clear up that today.
Yeah. All right. So the media ambassador will call to clear it up. It's just that it does sound bad. Now again, there might be things that wasn't released to him. Because one would hope that an orphan child with no parents, and that and all is, if there was no stolen phone, that and all would be a situation that the police needs to, you can't just
and they can't
go back
question
out to the
them,
public.
and they can't question them without a parent or a guardian or a lawyer present.
Right.
Yeah.
So you do run into a situation.
Yeah, so it doesn't seem we have all the information.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
we'll
clear it
find
up.
out
Yeah, we'll clear it up.
and clear it up,
Right.
and then you could
With
give
respect to the earlier caller, he spoke about how much officers were on suspension.
Right.
There are hundreds of officers on suspension at any given time. These are officers that have been charged with criminal offenses or under investigation. There are officers on that list who go home without a pay.
Right.
Because I've actually charged officers. I've charged at least 3 police officers in my career, and some of them went home on half pay. Some of them, when I say on home, they went on suspension with half pay or no pay.
Right.
So there are cases where it depends on your situation. You would be given a certain amount of pay.
Now, and here's the thing, believe it or not, one of the things that I want to bring up, as he said that, as you say that is, things like suspension become an issue if the whole process takes too long.
Exactly, because you have to go through the same legal issues, the same procedure.
In the court?
In the court.
At least in certain situations, if you're charged.
Yeah, if you're charged,
Right.
you go through the same justice system as everybody else. So the length of time it takes depends on,
Because
whatever issues.
no pay suspension is not meant to have a court matter take 5 to 10 years.
No.
Right? Because when you say it that way, listen, my case is 10 years old, I've been on no pay suspension, blah, 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 blah. That sounds so bad. And then to bleeding heart, people is like, how could this be? He should get paid. Whatever. It's like, it wasn't meant for the criminal proceedings to take so long when you have something like that.
So there are cases like that. And then, to not pay somebody while is on suspension because they've allegedly committed a criminal offense might be wrong to some instance because they are saying they are innocent.
Yes,
and
that's
the other thing.
Yes.
And not to pay
Which,
them.
again, it would be fine if this was something that could be done quickly.
Yes, correct.
Right? And then you could say, oh, we'll give you back pay because, if necessary, because the back pay ain't going to be that much.
Right, and then you're not allowed as a police officer to have another form of income. So you can't go out and look for another job while you're on suspension.
That is crazy.
Yeah, so you have to actually...
Can you technically quit so that you can?
No.
Wow.
You can't quit. Yeah, I mean, you could resign.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
yes,
you could resign.
Resign.
From
the
the
case will
TTPS.
still be pending.
The case will still be pending.
You could get another job.
Right, and that's the only way you can get another job.
Okay.
But outside of that, even as a serving member of the TTPS or on suspension, you cannot have another job. So you can't go and say, well, unless you have permission from the Commissioner of Police, it may work. I don't think in every case he does give permission. I've actually known other officers who on active duty requested permission to have another job or like a sideline job and whatnot, and they've been blank. They've not been given the permission.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is when you're worried about not that police have the same, well, to some extent police have the same responsibilities as truck drivers, not so much as pilots, but the point is like you don't want your workforce fatigued.
Besides fatigue, you don't want to mingle with everybody.
Right.
So you don't want them to have bias notions, biased
Right,
interactions,
right,
and whatnot with just any and anybody.
Yeah.
So you want them to be unbiased. So you want to keep
No,
them.
but I mean, just look for the private sector. It is a consideration where how are you going to do my job and then also do someone else's job?
And there are going to
then,
be cases of conflict of interest when it comes to having another job in
Yeah.
another department or another location. So you could imagine you're a police officer here and you conduct an investigation into a construction company, which I've done, and you're working
For that company,
construction
yeah,
company.
yeah.
So there are conflicts of interest. So police officers are not allowed to just have a sideline job. They're not allowed to have taxi badges and whatnot.
now, I hate to say this, but the caller brought up something about police tribunals. I'm not entirely sure what that means.
Yeah, right. So in the disciplinary process, there are police
Right.
tribunals. So you may commit a disciplinary offense simultaneously or not simultaneously to a criminal offense.
You see, one of the issues is internal stuff, at least with regards to the public perception. When the public perception is good, then internal stuff just automatically works.
Yeah.
We'll trust in it automatically.
Right.
When you're behind the curve, when you have public perception issues, then it's very hard to say, you know what we're going to do to fix it? We're going to have internal measures in order to fix it. It's like that. It's just, to some extent, yes, you still have to do internal things to fix your public perception, but it's going to be hard for people to be like, yes, this is working. Because, look, right now, the caller, you pointed out they have some bad apples. You're pointing out there are hundreds on suspension. It's like the perception causes the foundation to be shaky. So then now, we already have issues, in my opinion, with oversight on national security services from the top.
Right, but the penalty for in terms of the tribunal is not that you may lose your job. You might be convicted in terms of this pay
Right.
and whatnot, and some other penalties. But I think only the what they call them, the board. There's a board.
I mean, let me put it this way. Some people question the amount of politics,
Yeah.
right? And one would think, I mean, at some point, I don't know if the Police Service Commission was supposed to do it before they changed it, but I don't think anyone has trust in the Police Service Commission right now, regardless,
Right, so I think
anyway.
only Police Service Commission could fire them.
You know, I think, no, the commissioner, the Police Service Commission only disciplines the commissioner and DCPs. And everybody under that, it's solely in the authority of the commissioner.
Oh, okay.
Which has its pros and cons, let's put it that way, right? But look, this is why I think the PCA to some extent exists, right? To handle these things from an outside perspective. But then now, on some level, we kind of want the PCA to do more than it's technically meant to do.
Right.
And then there are issues with it doing its job, whether it's resource allocation, non-cooperation, lack of proficiency, I don't know, right? But there's just a lot of questions and gaps. And I have had my times where I'm looking at the PCA and I'm like, yeah, I ain't doing nothing. And then other times where I'm like, well, y'all can't do nothing. And it's just one of those things where regardless, you're not necessarily seeing a path to improving the situation. And then, similar to what I said, so an internal tribunal, it's kind of hard when you question the service. It goes back to when you have these suspensions and you're dependent on the court to deal with the criminal matters, but the court has its own problems.
Right.
So that whole foundation, that whole system has its own issues that are compounding on the police, because I'm fairly certain if you didn't have the judicial issues, you wouldn't have so many officers on suspension at one time.
And the PCA does conduct several hundred investigations through the year. Several hundred complaints.
I mean,
maybe the public may not be aware, but they do conduct a lot of investigations.
See, one of the issues, and this is to another point that, okay, which caller? From South? Caller?
Konopia.
Okay, yes, caller. Caller, you have something else to add?
Yes, I hear.
Hello?
Konopia.
Yes, go ahead. Mute your TV caller. Talk to us on the phone.
Yes, yes. Officer, yes. Officer, I just hear you say that police not supposed to have another job.
Yeah.
Or
unless they have permission.
They entitled to Taxi badge, taxi.
No, let's have permission. They have to have permission from the commissioner.
From the commissioner of police. Before anything else, they need permission.
Why are saying that? Why are saying that is because when a police have a taxi badge and he have a taxi, he considered that job more than his work.
Yeah.
He originally being a policeman, you know.
So you can imagine
because
he has a taxi badge and he gives people tickets.
I used to be a taxi driver and all too. And quite a number of police had the taxi. And they would bully people on the stand.
Yeah.
They would drive on the shoulder because they know
they
could get away with saying, well, all right, there's a police and whatnot. And I know one, he went on vacation for 3 years. He buy a van. And that man used to be driving crazy on the road. Hustling. Imagine, you know that's illegal. And you as a police, you are allowing to do that.
Yeah. And that
can I ask you a question? Do you all try to discipline the police in the station, not good or bad? Talk to them and say, well, look, listen, the people look up on you all. All they have to do this. This is all their job. All they have to work this way. You are human being. They are human being. Treat people equally, so that people will be happy.
Listen,
Thank you. All right, thanks, caller.
Yeah, from a practical experience, we have pulled aside officers.
Yeah.
From an ethical perspective and spoken to them, you are held at a higher standard. You are not the regular John Doe on the government road, you know. You cannot operate like that. We have actually we have spoken and pulled across police officers for that same issue.
You're not the first officer that's told me that. The problem is we don't hear this enough from the officer at the top.
We talk to police officers every day. It's about absenteeism, about late coming.
I get it. But then when you have the executive saying, well, we want to encourage officers to do this and we want to encourage officers.
No.
Right? I don't want to, listen, I hope no one makes Chris guilty by association. I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I am voicing now the frustration of the public.
It's an internal thing. We can't come out and say, well, we discipline A and B and 1 because in itself, you could be...
You don't have to say who you discipline.
Right.
But in your public, because when you talk and when you say, I want to encourage officers, right, and you sound like you're treating them with kids' gloves,
no.
the public is going to hear that. Not you, the leadership, right? Okay. The whole concept of being held to a higher standard is something that I feel too many people in high office, not just in the police service, but across the board, right? And you know what, to some extent, it starts from the top. When you hear so many hot mic incidents, I'm sure the police are like, we don't say that on an open microphone and on a live broadcast.
No, but every day it's a daily issue. Up to yesterday, I was having a conversation with a colleague in the Army, and we were speaking about discipline in TTPS and in the Army and whatnot. And we both identified that's a totally different issues that we deal with on a regular basis. And one of the things I mentioned, I said, you know, the sergeant in the station and in the department is the person that does the disciplining of junior officers.
Right.
So the senior officers like myself would go to the inspector and the sergeant and say, listen, we're having issues and whatnot. But in most cases, the sergeant is the person that takes the task, everybody, you know,
Stick up in on that. We have Sanfan on the line. Caller, good morning, on here.
Yes. Morning, Sean.
Go ahead, caller. You there?
Morning, Sean. Morning, ASP Arun.
Hi, good day. How are you going?
Not too bad. Firstly, ASP Arun, I want to ask you one thing. The police service motto is still to protect and serve with pride, right?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Right. So, please do one thing for me. Tell the commissioner you need to stop wearing that Punisher patch, but that doesn't. I don't know if it's going to make him look tough, but he needs to stop wearing that. And two, that body camera that he had on for Carnival should be better given to somebody else in the field. He don't need it. People in the field need it.
No, we have officers on the field with body cameras.
No, let me say this, Sean. You know, I looked at Dr. Valmiki Arjun, who is the first president of the Trinidad and Tobago India Business Federation. They had a launch. And I applaud Dr. For trying to do something different. But this wasn't a government initiative. This is an economist that trying to make a difference. And we have to look at that, and for what it's worth, I mean, this is a serious uphill battle in terms of diversification and bringing new business to Trinidad and Tobago, or business opportunities. And Dr. Arjun has an uphill battle, but I have to say congratulations to Dr. Arjun. And he knows that. He spoke about it in the opening, in the launch. I want to say publicly, great work, Dr. Arjun. Ms. John, again, when we come back to this Tobago ferry, so you see now, Sean, that there is, as I said before, there are mechanical issues with this boat. I listened to Ms. John again on the Tobago Updates program, so talking about fendering and a lot of ridiculous things. There's a mechanical issue with this boat, a serious mechanical issue with this boat, and I really, it seems as if, let me say this, Sean, the what you call it, the NIDCO doesn't have the expertise to do charter parties. NIDCO was the one that spearheaded the use of the water taxis, and they were brought in in terms of management of those things, and the entire ferries, in terms of maintenance. But in terms of contracts, what in the marine business what we call a charter party, they are not as skilled in doing a charter party as the Port Authority and the entire ferry service people. And that is where this thing has fallen down. When I see Mr. Anisette come and talk about there is no, the former employees of local employees on the Cabo Star have no job, because in the contract, in the charter party for this new boat, for this Blue Wave, that it wasn't included, it wasn't considered, and you could put anything in a charter party. So it tells me that it is a lot of inexperience that causing this ferry service. Sure, there are ferry service all over the world. You know. If you go to Greece, the amount of Greek ferries it have, the amount of ferries it have, right in St. Vincent, there's St. Vincent in the Grenadines, they have private ferry service running from mainland St. Vincent into the Grenadine Islands. Private ferry service. They have boats now going from there to St. Lucia, from St. Vincent. And we, right next door, we have all this money that we have spent, and we can't have a seamless service running without some sort of controversy every 3-4 months, every 5 months in Trinidad and Tobago. I still can't understand that. It is time, as far as I'm concerned, that we look at putting private money into this ferry service. Private money. Because we're not getting value for money, Sean, and what we are spending way more than we should be spending to have an inter-island ferry service. Way more than we should be spending. This inter-island ferry service is a drain on the treasury because it is inefficient. It is inefficient. Have a good day, Sean.
Thank you, Paula. The problem with that is, if we let let me use the Airbridge example. The true cost of the tickets are potentially higher than what they are now because of the subsidies, right? So the question is it just the subsidization or is it the inefficiency? Because the problem is the ferry service has social considerations, and that's why it's not profitable, at least in part. So to what extent could a private sector initiative come and be commercially viable enough? Because private sector doesn't do business to break even, right? They need to make a profit. Inflation will chew out their investment like it makes no sense. So if you want private-public partnership, fine, so that the private sector has more of a say. Tobago probably, with regards to the cargo ferry, at the very least should have more of a say. But I'll just say this. As far as my memory serves correct, the fast ferry started under PNM administration, THA and central government. Over London announced it at, I think, a THA election cycle, right, campaigning or whatever. I say that to say when the partnership came into power, not too long after that time period, I believe. I could be wrong, because it's been a long time. I'm remembering multiple different long-term memories. At some point, the Port Authority board and the contract for the maintenance of the fast ferries were changed. It could have been for politics, it could have been for budgetary reasons, but we weren't necessarily poor back then, so I don't know why. There was the need to save money, because once the maintenance people and the board was changed, I'm not sure if one caused the other, right? If the board was what changed the maintenance contract. Then you started getting more problems with the ferry. Then coincidentally, you also had the whole situation where the cargo boat contract came up at the same time, and then Minister Ranson, I believe, said to the press, I don't know what's going on with the ferry all of a sudden, which was, you had like bad management on both ends, because you had the transition from the partnership to the PNM government. But you could trace it all back to then, where you had an experienced board for the Port Authority, and they were replaced with inexperienced people, and it started to go downhill there. And this might be the UNC Prime Minister Kamala Prasad-Bissasa's administration kind of repeating the same mistakes, potentially not understanding why they were mistakes, maybe in part because the last time the people who bore the consequences with the PNM, now they have to bear the consequences of not fully understanding what they're doing with this ferry thing. The thing is, I would always be an advocate of the air bridge probably needs to be less subsidized, but you can't take away the cheap sea bridge tickets, right? And remember, a lot of old people use the sea bridge for free. Should we take that away from them? Like, this is just one of those things where, is it a money-making venture or social public good where those considerations take precedence? Can private do it? Well, you know what? If you can get a private venture, that's fine. The air bridge, that bust more than once. Maybe the sea bridge, it can happen, because at least for cargo, you want a certain amount of reliability. I will refrain from speaking further on the whole situation. I'll get more into that tomorrow. But I just thought to make that observation. You're speaking about a lack of knowledge and experience now. And I'm like, no, 10 to 15 years or somewhere around that timeline, the ball got rolling, for better or worse. So we reach where we reach. Now, we're going to have to wrap it just now, but back to the police service. I think the caller pointed out serving with pride. I think part of the problem is the pride comes in part because of knowing that you are held to and holding yourself to a higher standard. And I think it comes back down to I don't doubt that there are members in the police service like yourself who have worked themselves to the point where your health has been affected. And we've seen officers die of health conditions in their 30s and 40s, not just from COVID, right? I have no doubt that there are hardworking officers like that.
Right, and
I don't see that level of commitment and the messaging and the leadership and the understanding of how to utilize public messaging to advance those concepts leadership-wise from the people that either run the service or hold the service.
What I can assure members of the public of is that I am also the ASP in charge of discipline in my department.
Right.
So in every department, station, section, branch, unit in the TTPS, there's an ASP discipline.
Right.
So this person initiates or causes to be initiated disciplinary action. Sybil could do it, the sergeant could do it.
One of the difficulties is if it is a situation where you have an HR problem that begins and ends internally, then it doesn't matter if the public knows about it or not, right?
Right.
You all don't have to tell us what's going on there.
Right. But it does happen every day.
The problem is when you have situations that they don't originate internally, they originate externally.
Right, and we have cases where members of the public make complaints to the TTPS as well as the police complaints authority. So there's a simultaneous investigation.
I think it's similar to like the Samaru shooting.
Right.
Whereas that we don't need to know everything.
Right.
We don't need to know anything that compromise the investigation, the prosecution. But knowing what you can reveal is one of the skill sets for people at certain high-level positions, which, to be fair to the commissioner, it's not as though multiple administrations understand what they should and should not say.
Right.
They know that when they're in opposition, they say everything that they can, and when they're government, they try to say nothing at all. Right? So who is any public servant outside of that to say, I'm going to be the one to reveal things to the public, right? One thing I want to get to before we close, and this is with regards to police statistics, because this is one of those things where it's back and forth. When the murder rate was high, the people used to say, well, it's not only the murder rate. When the murder rate was low, the then executive were like, well, the murder rate is low, praise us, praise us. And to be fair, it should really be the public looking to say, hey, that thing that we bothered you all about all the time is low.
Right.
Right? To be fair. But it's also the police executive kind of changing the goalposts.
Right.
But my point is this. I think, and this is not really for the ASP I'm making this point for, this is for the viewers. To analyze the job of the police takes a lot of statistics and a lot of nuance, right? And it takes people to put a lot of effort to analyze these things. It's not just response times, it's not just the murder rate, it's not just violent crime statistics, it's not just detection rate, it's not just prosecution rate, it's not just conviction rate, etc. But it's all of those things. And I think one of the issues I have, and this goes to the media as well as the politicians, it's a lot easier for a politician to sell a narrative of, well, the murder rate is high, things are bad when I'm in the opposition. Or the murder rate is low, so things are good when I'm in government. And for the news, it's a lot easier to, get circulation by just being what is the simple thing for people to understand and not be like, no, we need to look at all of these things because, first of all, your previous position in special victims, we can't judge it the same way as you would judge robbery.
No.
And how the detection rate and the conviction rates for robberies are with regard, because the challenges that the special victims have will be different.
Correct.
So it takes a lot to analyze the work of the police, and this is where I think if you want to criticize the media, the fourth estate, we share the blame. Criticize the politicians that they want to just oversimplify things and talking points so they could win political debates that we technically don't have because we never see the two parties debate each other, just by the way. And because of that now, on some level, it's not really the police's job to say, well, what is the standard that y'all should judge us by from the public perspective? It really should be, a bit more holistic than that. And you could kind of help us understand what's going on, right? But it's kind of, the police are kind of left like, we don't even know how y'all are actually judging us because this is all by the whims of whatever the narrative is of the day.
It seems we are being judged by the murder rate.
But when the murder rate is low, there's still aspects
as far as,
that people are uneasy about.
Yeah, my stats indicate that, the stats I've been provided would indicate that the murder rate is on par with last year.
Right, yes. I think I kind of said it, 55 at this point in time, we ain't reached anything drastic yet, right? So there is that. But at the same time, there's something about, first of all, arguably, this is still not a good murder rate for our population size.
I don't think so.
Right? And I think people not feeling safe, there is validity with that. But now I guess it comes with because I guess part of it is we can't just say murder rate high, your fault, and that's it. It's like, no, what do we want? What action do we want?
So
how fast do we demand the action to be?
So what might be our acceptable murder rate?
Well, I mean, I don't want to say it like that, but reasonable would not be, well, I have an expectation of 0 by next year.
Right.
Reasonable has to be, well, what can reasonably be done to get it down to what would be, because there comes a point where statistically it might be impossible for you all to lower it any further. Like, even with a perfect world, unless you have a population of a ton of tons that you literally could dictate what they do in their life, you're not going to get it down to 0. Right. I remember when it was a big issue about the police shooting in America of unarmed black men.
Right.
The problem was the George Floyd murder, by the time that happened, nationally, that figure was 9. The year before, so I believe George Floyd was killed 2019, there were 9 police shootings of unarmed black men. And when you look at a population of 300 plus million, where about 16% are African Americans, and you have more than 9 cities, right? Much less 9 police jurisdictions, because LA has a sheriff's county's office and a police department, right? It's like the average of shootings of unarmed black men in America per police jurisdiction was less than 1, because there were only 9. And I'm like, statistically, I don't know how you get it lower than that, because most police services departments in 2019 had 0, right? So there's going to be a point where, I don't know, maybe this might be like 20 for the year, 40 for the year, 50 for the year, like less than 100. I don't know how much more you could get it down, right? So what is the reasonableness of what we want from you? Because if it's all just, well, it's high, complain, right? And we're not actually trying to look, well, what is the police doing? You know, and again, goes partially to the media, partially to the people that craft the narratives at the top, as in what is the message that we're saying of the service, of the successes, or not saying of the successes. I do love it, even with all of my complaining, when you see the story of there was a robbery in Port of Spain and in 5 minutes they caught the guy. There was a robbery in the East-West corridor and in 2 minutes they caught the guy on the highway. You know, some old lady got robbed and the police responded right away and whatever, they caught the guy before he could run off the street. Or whatever, you know, they caught the murderers, they caught the this, they caught the that, they recovered the this, the whatever, right? Or random motorcycle cops help motorists stranded on the highway. But we don't see a lot of those stories, for better or worse.
Well, I mean,
well, sorry, not for better, for worse.
And we didn't even mention the 2 large hauls of narcotics that they seized over there.
Well, some was weed. I don't know if I count weed. That to me, I was meaning to mention that. My issue with large hauls of weed is not that, you know, the police needs to do better. My issue is when you decriminalize a thing, the police still getting large hauls of illegal decriminalized thing.
But this decriminalized
thing, that makes sense to me. No, but that's not a police problem.
No, but it has what they call areas that benefit from these.
Listen, I get that, but as a society, when we legally decriminalize something and there's still illegal profit in it, that means that the legislature around that ain't working. That's point number 1. Point number 2, the implication of those hauls are that, hey, the Americans left, them boats running drugs, and now we're right back to where we started. So first of all, everyone had said it was regime change, right? Didn't solve the issue, right? We weren't able to capitalize the window to solve the issue. So we are potentially, now there's no SOE anymore, there's no carnival anymore, there's no election anymore to keep things suppressed. Now I guess the question is, to what degree will crime remain where you have a murder rate of around 30 a month? Which is, it will be what gives us the on average, the 300 or so murder rate as opposed to the 600. Can it be sustained? I don't know. It's an uphill battle because you no longer have all of these other things.
Right. But I mean, right now, the police service geared towards these gangs, the gang activity, the gang killings and whatnot. So hopefully we'll see a decrease in the murder rate.
Yes, because I don't think I was prepared to read about that Coover murder, to be honest. And then worse yet, not that I fault the newspaper for showing the photo, but when you see, it's one thing to read it, it's another thing to see it. Right? It is what it is. Any sense of, look, it's a murder. It's not like, you know, okay, why the police provide, like, the police can't be everywhere at once. But it happened. And I guess this is more me kind of lamenting wider Trinbago society, because this happened the Friday before Carnival. It actually happened, right? In the middle of the festivities when everybody's supposed to be freeing up and jamming and getting the mind off things. No, the criminals did not sleep during that time period. Anyway, we're over time, and this is, you know, not a very uplifting show. but it is what it is. Thanks to the callers for calling, and thanks, Chris, for coming in.
The body cam, I mean, there are officers on the field, especially in traffic branch and ITF and GB, that where the body cams.
I guess
there are limited amounts.
I understand, but it's a two-tiered problem. One, on some level, ITF, all soldiers interacting in public, and all police that have a reasonable expectation to interact with the public probably needs body cams, because you never know when something's going to happen, and that officer will potentially wish he had a body camera, right? Yeah. And then the other thing is the policy on revealing footage.
Right.
Right? Not necessarily to the public, because I mentioned the example where they revealed the footage to the dead person's family, so that they went from saying he's a victim to say, we saw the footage, our boy was wrong, right? But I believe the footage also got revealed to the public eventually, right? So things like that disarms public distrust and discontent very quickly. Yeah. So that also needs to be looked at, in my opinion, because this is the thing, we could have 10,000 body cameras. And if nobody outside of the official investigators see the footage and the case is going to take 10 years, then it's not going to really help the police anyway. And my fear is the people in charge, like the minister, is going to say, see, we got the cameras, but you're still vexed. It's because we need to see the footage too, smartly. Right? But anyway, thanks, Chris. Yeah. Folks, this is Talking About WESN. Have a good day. Stay safe. Remember your allegiance to the public and to each other. It's nice to be nice. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
WESN.
This is 10 Questions. We welcome everyone. Mr. Ravi Bhargavan Maharaj, he's our guest on this edition of the program. He's a social and political commentator of the First Order. We're calling the segment Applause from Washington, one of the most prolific and materially diverse conversants one could meet in the current and ongoing discourse about American hegemony and the situation